Robert Gottliebsen. He's expecting the call.
Good morning.
Robert, how are you?
I'm excellent.
I was just about to give you this a blazing introduction to the show. You've got your maid there answering the telephone.
There you are, artificial intelligence.
Well, Walkley award-winning Robert Gottliebsen, economist for The Australian, founder of the Business Review Weekly magazine and all of that. Sir, I wanted to talk to you about this budget. What out of 10 would you give it?
About 3, maybe 2.
How generous.
What is its biggest failure, do you think?
The biggest failure was, first of all, not to understand that we were suffering, beginning quite a severe downturn before the budget. And then what they've done is to turn the place absolutely upside down, and they did it without advice from anybody who knew what was happening or what would happen if they did that. And it hits young people particularly hard, and yet they're the people that they're trying to benefit. But of course, it changes the savings patterns of older people. All of this in a downturn, and it's now scrambling to try and fix some of the things up that it did because it didn't do its homework. This will cause quite a severe downturn in Australia.
You said they did it without any advice. How many people are in the Treasury? He's got economists coming out of his economists.
Yes, well, that's the problem.
Oh.
The Treasury has agendas, and he said he wanted to do various things, and they trotted out the agenda. If there'd been a Keating in charge of as Treasurer or a Costello, they had networks of people that they could go to and check, and they knew to sometimes take a Treasury advice, sometimes not. And Chalmers didn't have that network, and he didn't check with anybody, I don't think, and he just fell into a heap. And you can see now he's trying to fix bits of it up. But when you do something like that at the beginning of a downturn, we were having a downturn as he was speaking, and then just turn the place upside down, you have very severe consequences, and you must accept that.
Yeah, do you see any parallels between this government and going back to Whitlam in 72?
Well, the great problem with Whitlam in 72 was that he had people in power that had legacy situations that had come up when they're in opposition who really weren't up to the job. And the main person in that was, of course, Jim Cairns.
Yeah.
And Jim was made treasurer. Goodness knows why he did that. And Jim was a lot worse than Chalmers. But so he had someone in charge of the economy who didn't know what was going on, though. And horrendous mistakes took place. We got ourselves into a deep recession. And when the election took place, Whitlam was thrown out because the economy was in a mess. So very clear parallels between that. Chalmers is a lot better than Cairns, but he doesn't have people around him to help him. And you can't. Treasury's okay; it's part of your advice network, but only part.
It's sort of littered with unintended consequences, isn't it? But talking about history, in getting rid of negative gearing, they only had to go back to how it started back in 1936. And it was, I believe, or I'm told, that it was started because of a housing crisis.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but it probably was, because if you put negative gearing in, lots of people invest in dwellings and rent them out.
Yeah,
that's how you do it. If you take the negative gearing away, then people won't build or buy residence for rent. And so what he's doing there quite consciously and you'd think knowingly is he wants the rents to go a great deal higher, and they will.
Who's going to be happy about that?
Well, it's very tough on younger people.
God, yes.
And at least now they know who to blame.
Yes,
it's nice and simple.
It's that nice and simple and clear as day. I've got Tony Denton here with me, and we were talking just before we went to air about his. Well, you had a business. You built up a business from nothing.
You know, Robert, the thing is, if you start a business, the shares might be worth $100, $101 shares. You sell it for $20 million. Now you pay $4.7 million tax. Because
in tax.
indexing $100 at 3% per annum is $120. Great cost base increase.
So this guy is denying the younger generation all of the things that we had as we were coming through.
Well, in the case of the capital gains tax on entrepreneurial businesses, they have woken up now that there's a bit of a problem there. And a really interesting situation is that Canada, the new Canadian Prime Minister, his predecessor was talking about capital gains tax, and he said no, because I want people to invest in Canada and I want them to create jobs in Canada. Yeah. And he understood what this was all about. And our guys don't do that, you see.
So they're tied up with ideology and not the practical realities of life.
And that's right. And Treasury is similar.
Robert, could you, Jeremy was saying before there's no CGT in New Zealand. Could you incorporate your company in New Zealand and trade in Australia?
Oh, yes. I was at it doesn't matter where I was, but I was at a function during the week. And there's a lot of people there, senior people there, and including successful startup type people as well. And they're saying, look, we would never start up a business in Australia now. Now, you know, if you're starting up a plumbing business or a particularly local market business, of course you have to start it here. But we're talking about a high technology business or something that has that could make itself into a large business. Of course you start it in New Zealand or you do Singapore. They're the two places you'd immediately think of. You just wouldn't do it here.
So exactly the exact thing that they say they want to do, they're killing or disincentivizing.
That's right, and they're scrambling around at the bottom end, saying, "Well, hang on, if you've got a little business, you'll get capital gains tax. You see, if I start up a trade type business or something like that, or any sort of business that's small, basically probably the local market, yes, I won't have to pay these high capital gains tax. But they're trying to define that now and finding how very difficult that is to do. But, you know, it goes worse than that. It's worse than that. Our medium-sized business, family business structures in our farms are structured around trusts. And so they've said, no, we're going to tax you on trusts. And if you're not very careful, the profits will be taxed at 60% or more. As the trusts are taxed at 30%, then they go to other people and they get taxed again.
With the bucket companies.
But anyway, so what you've got to do now is restructure your whole business. And so instead of developing your business for the next 2 years, instead of employing people and doing things, you're going to hang back and try and fix up the structure. And again, that's just another lack of will contribute to our downturn and contribute to our constant lower productivity. And one more thing, which we tend to forget about. The government passed what I call a CFMEU Industrial Relations Act. Horrendous act, just unbelievable act. And everyone thought that there'd be a big problem with this. And there wasn't. And there wasn't because Fair Work put out an interpretation which meant that it hardly changed. They just ignored the act in their interpretation. High Court, all the courts have said, no, you Fair Work got that wrong. Of course they did. And it's back to CFMU type rules. And already you're starting to see companies being affected by this, more inspections, more difficulty with their staff. And guess what you're seeing already? Young people getting sacked in this and not employed because, and you see in the unemployment figures that just came out there, guess who got the most jobs? It was the young people. We're now really, not only is the downturn causing all these silly taxes and things they're doing, causing us to restrict our costs, but of course artificial intelligence is, and the industrial relations laws. So you've got a real nasty, totally imposed by government not thinking.
One of the least productive industries in the whole country, if not the world, would be the tax avoidance business. And I can see that exploding. That's going to be a growth area, isn't it?
Yes, well, because you have to actually now all the probably millions, huge numbers of businesses that are in trusts, they have to be restructured. And so that's be a lot of work in that. You're quite right.
And,
But
and
they'll
also,
develop
Robert,
formulas.
stamp duty, the states want stamp duty for transferring assets out.
Well, that's right. The states are going to really demand this because they're going to be hit for six by the fact that the way they've structured these capital gains taxes and negative gearing. If you've got negative gearing or you've got a capital, you'll hang on to your house. You won't sell it. If you do sell it, you'll get a much lesser price because the buyer doesn't get the same advantages. So that means stamp duty is going to fall. And that's the base revenue of many of the states. So the property stamp duty is going to get quite hit hard. Now, it may get compensated because of the trust restructuring and things like that. So you can just see that's a swirling mess. And states are going to come to the Commonwealth and say, hey, you've done these crazy things. Our stamp duty's been hit for six. This is on residential houses, and that's just normal property.
Yeah. All the knock-on effects.
and so, New South Wales is already screaming about this. Victoria, of course, they've got no money anyway, and so they have to. They've got to borrow money, and they're spending like you couldn't believe.
Yeah.
We've got a government here that doesn't give a stuff. It just spends and promises to spend, and it'll just borrow the money.
Now, I know you've got another interview coming, so you just tell me when you've got to go. But I know I'm getting ahead of myself, and we don't have a Governor-General who would do it, so I don't imagine these guys are going to get sacked, regardless of how incompetent they are or what the fallout from this budget might be. But what would your advice be to the other side of politics, how it could perhaps take advantage of what has happened? We don't have to have a capital gains tax. We didn't have one till 85, did we?
You've got to start. The opposition has got to start screaming and screaming and screaming. And if the Liberals don't do it, I think One Nation will.
Yes.
But I don't think the opposition. It all just came, and only now. It sort of got a bit of a shock. It was there. It was just a huge amount. It only takes a few days before you realise just how disastrous this is. The opposition has a magnificent opportunity here, and we've got two oppositions. We have to hope that they cooperate and they swap preferences and all those sort of things. But they've both got to get out there and really go to the that government with a machine gun.
Yes.
And I think there is a mood. I'm in Victoria, so there's a mood in Victoria about the Victorian government. Because in Victoria, your problem is that a lot of people work for the government. And, so there's all of that. But in federally, there's suddenly a mood that we've got to do something about this. And in that group of people, and they were affluent people in that room, they said for the first time in our lives, we're ashamed of being Australians.
Yes. And particularly young Australians, this is what all of these changes were designed, they say, to help young people. I can't see it. And if it is all about getting younger people into a home earlier and more easily, they didn't have to put the capital gains tax thing onto shares and other assets.
Well, Jeremy, just in terms of helping younger people, this is the worst budget for younger people I've ever seen. Yeah. But they didn't understand that they're taking the younger people's jobs away. That's the first thing they're doing. And then all other worries, they're knocking them around as well. So this is a budget that was designed with, I suppose, good intentions, but it was then designed by a Treasury who didn't know the ramifications and gave these to a Treasurer who also didn't know and didn't have anyone or didn't bother to consult anybody. And he's in a lot of trouble now, and there's a fair chance that this will cost the government the next election, but it's 2 years away. Lots of things can happen in that time. Jeremy, I've got to run.
Yep.
It's great to talk to you.
And you, sir. Have a good day, and thank you very much for your time and your wisdom.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
All the best. He's a magnificent man, Robert Gottliebsen, economist at the Australian and a man of common sense. You see, wouldn't you think that this government, Labor government, Liberal government, would go along and talk to people like Robert Gottliebsen before they do this sort of stuff?
It's absolutely stunning that has not occurred. You just make an assumption as a voter that these people who you put in government collaborate
Yep.
with appropriate sources, and they don't.
Well, what is best? That we just say they're stupid, or that they have got an agenda, a socialist or communist agenda? I don't know what is the best label to hang on this budget.
I think the only thing you can do is assume that, as you've said a million times, they're all ideologues. They're not feet on the ground people.
Well,
they're not practical people.
you couldn't really have practical people in Canberra, could you? Because after all, that's a bubble. They live in their own glorified, rarefied little world.
I think the other point that's often made is if the government employs everyone, they're going to have them voting for them.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Jeremy, here's a breaking news story on the Financial Review.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. The headline says, Greens demand that government toughen budget measures. So for the Greens, it's not tough enough.
Yeah.
The negotiations have begun between Labor and the Greens, and the latter want tougher changes to CGT and negative gearing to provide revenue for bigger tax cuts.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, no,
They're
we won't
hell-bent
get
on
won't get to. Don't take the money in the first place. Then you won't have to hand it back.
But the Greens are just so destructive, absolutely
Well,
destructive.
they're communists. You know what
It's
they
only
say.
the rebadged
They're
Communist
disgraceful.
Party.
Well, it's they're green on the outside and red on the inside, like
That's
a
right.
watermelon. Well, look, I think that's true.
It is so true.